At the top of a hill, where the wind blew gently and the sky seemed to stretch endlessly, lived Master Shun. His hut was simple, with just the essentials: a futon, a clay teapot, and a wooden bowl. One day, a young merchant named Rin arrived, dressed in silks and adorned with jade rings. He bowed respectfully and said, "Master, I have traveled from afar to learn from you. I have read countless books and possess great wealth, yet I still feel a void within me. What am I missing?" Master Shun smiled and, without saying a word, took the wooden bowl. He then filled it with tea to the brim. When the liquid began to overflow, Ren frowned. "Master, the bowl is already full. If you keep pouring, it will spill." Shun looked at him calmly and replied, "This is your mind, overflowing with desires, knowledge, and possessions. You cannot receive anything new unless you first learn to empty yourself." Ren fell silent, feeling the weight of those words. Ren lowered his gaze, watching as the tea spilled onto the table and dripped to the floor. His hands, accustomed to counting coins and holding contracts, trembled slightly. "Master," he finally said, "how can I empty myself? I have spent my life accumulating and learning. I have been taught that the more I possess, the more I am worth." Shun took the bowl and slowly tilted it, pouring the excess tea onto the earth. He then placed it in front of Ren. "Start here," he said. "What do you see?" Ren looked at the empty bowl and frowned. "Nothing," he replied. Shun smiled. "Then you are now ready to receive." The wind blew gently through the hut. Ren felt a strange relief, as if, for the first time in a long time, there was space within him for something new. Ren took the bowl in his hands. Its surface was smooth, worn by the years, without decorations or markings. Something so simple, yet the master treated it as if it were a treasure. "Master, I have always believed that the value of something lies in what it contains. A chest is valuable for its gold, a house for its riches. But this bowl, empty. Why do you consider it so valuable?" Shun poured some tea into Ren's empty bowl and then into his own. He drank calmly before replying, "If it were full of stones, you could not use it. Its usefulness comes from its emptiness. The same happens with us. If our mind is full of desires, fears, and certainties, there is no space for true understanding." Ren looked at the dark liquid in the bowl. His reflection wavered on the surface. For the first time, he began to wonder how many useless things he carried inside. "How can I learn to empty myself?" he asked softly. Shun placed his bowl on the table and replied, "Start by letting go of one thing." Ren fell silent, feeling the weight of those words. Ren felt the wind entering through the window and brushing his face. Something inside him told him the master was right, but he didn't know where to begin. Let go of just one thing? He repeated softly, "What should I let go of first?" Shun took his bowl and turned it in his hands, as if the answer lay in its simplicity. "Only you can know," he said calmly. "Look at your life. What weighs most heavily on your heart?" Ren furrowed his brow. There were many things he carried with him. The worry about his wealth, the ambition for more, the fear of losing everything. Finally, he sighed. "Perhaps my need for control," he admitted. "I am always afraid that something will go wrong, so I try to hold on to everything." Shun nodded. "Water that clings to its form stagnates. Water that flows follows its course without effort." Ren looked at his bowl. The tea inside moved slightly with the breeze, without resistance. "How do I let go of control, Master?" Shun smiled. "By allowing something for the first time to happen without your intervention." The young merchant fell silent. He had never considered the possibility of simply letting things happen. The silence between them grew long. Ren looked at his hands, accustomed to counting coins and signing contracts, to tightly holding the reins of his life. The idea of letting go of something, of just letting it happen, felt strange, almost impossible. "Master, what if everything falls apart?" he asked finally, his voice barely audible. Shun took his own bowl and gently placed it on the table. The sound of the wood striking the surface resonated through the hut, but the bowl did not break. "Maybe it will fall apart, maybe it won't," the master replied. "But as long as you hold it with fear, you continue to carry an unnecessary burden." Ren looked at the bowl. His mind was filled with calculations, possibilities, warnings. What if he lost his wealth? What if he made a wrong decision? What if someone deceived him? He closed his eyes for a moment and sighed. "I will try," he said, with a firmer tone than he expected. Shun nodded with a slight smile. "Then today, choose one thing that you will not control. Let it flow, like the river that does not stop to think about its course." Ren felt a slight dizziness at the idea, but something inside him, a small new space, began to open. The next day, Ren woke with the first light of dawn. Outside, the wind shook the leaves of the trees, and the sound of the forest enveloped him with its natural calm. He remembered the master's words, "Choose one thing you will not control." He spent the morning trying to decide. Perhaps he should stop checking his accounts constantly or allow his servants to manage the market without his supervision. But each possibility filled him with anxiety. Finally, while drinking tea with Shun, a butterfly flew in through the window and landed on the edge of his bowl. Run raised his hand to shoo it away but remembered the master's teaching. He stopped. He watched as the butterfly delicately moved its wings, without hurry, without fear. He had no control over it. He didn't know if it would stay or if it would go. And then something strange happened. Instead of feeling uncomfortable, he experienced a light peace. Shun, who had been watching him silently, nodded. "Today you allowed something to simply be," he said gently. "This is how detachment begins." Run watched the butterfly take flight and leave through the window. Something inside him also seemed to have been freed. Run spent the rest of the day with a strange feeling. It wasn't unease, but neither was it certainty. It was something lighter, as if he had let go of a rope that had been tightly stretched for too long. In the afternoon, Shun took him on a walk down the path that descended from the hill. The path was uneven, with loose stones and exposed roots. Ren, accustomed to planning each step of his life, felt the urge to calculate the best way to proceed. But then he remembered the butterfly. He sighed and decided to walk without thinking too much, trusting the ground beneath his feet. Shun smiled. When you stop controlling every step, the path becomes clearer. They reached a stream with crystal clear water. Shun bent down and scooped a handful of water with his hands, letting it slip through his fingers. "Try to hold it," he said to Ren. The young man mimicked the gesture, but in his attempt to hold the water, he squeezed his hands too tightly, and most of it escaped. The master looked at him calmly. "This is how life works," he said. "The more you try to cling to it, the more it slips through your fingers." Run looked at his empty hands and felt the echo of those words inside him. Run watched the water disappear between his fingers. For the first time, he understood something he had only heard before. Life couldn't be held, only experienced. He sat by the stream and watched the constant flow of the water. It didn't stop, it didn't cling to the rocks, it didn't try to control its course. It simply moved forward without resistance. "Master," he said softly, "I've spent my entire life trying to fill my bowl with wealth, knowledge, and certainties. But now I see that the more full it is, the less space it has for the new." Shun nodded with a serene smile. "True learning begins when you become light. An empty bowl can receive, but a full one can only spill." Ren closed his eyes and felt his mind gradually becoming more spacious, more peaceful. After a while, Shun stood up and began walking back to the hut. Ren followed him silently, feeling that something inside him had changed. The wind blew gently through the trees, and for the first time in a long time, Ren didn't try to resist its course. Back at the hut, Ren gazed at his reflection in the surface of the tea. He no longer looked the same. It wasn't that his face had changed, but something deeper, something inside him. "Master," he said after a moment of silence, "if less is more, what happens to everything I already have? Should I give up my wealth, my knowledge, my previous life?" Shun took his bowl and turned it in his hands. "You don't need to get rid of anything," he replied. "What matters is not what you possess, but how much space you leave inside of you." Ren furrowed his brow. "I don't understand." The master stood up and pointed to the small hut where they lived. "This hut is not valuable for its walls, but for the empty space it allows us to inhabit. A bowl is useful because of its emptiness, not because of the wood it is made from. True wealth is not in what you accumulate, but in what you allow to flow." Ren felt his thoughts clearing. It wasn't about rejecting what he had, but not clinging to it. He took a deep breath and felt, for the first time, that his mind was like the bowl in his hands, ready to receive whatever life wished to pour into it. Ren stood up and looked at the master, with new clarity in his eyes. He didn't need more, just to learn to let go, to empty himself. The wealth or power he had accumulated no longer mattered. What mattered was the stillness he found within, in the empty space of his mind. "Thank you, master," he said with a deep bow. Shun smiled at him, as if he had been waiting for that moment. "Remember, Ran," he said softly, "the empty bowl is the greatest of all because it is capable of receiving the whole sky." Ran walked to the window and looked out at the horizon. The wind moved the leaves of the trees, the clouds glided effortlessly, and the world continued its course without the need for control. Like the bowl, he too had learned to empty himself, to let go. And in that emptiness, for the first time, he could feel the fullness of life flowing without obstacles.